Welcome to the Brothers Greenhouses. I'm Sam. We're here to talk about cover crops, why they're good, and how to grow them. Here's our cover crop selection at the greenhouse. We sell our stuff in bulk right out of buckets. It's really easy to shop for. You can see the seed and you can find out how much you need for your given job. There's a lot of different types of cover crops, but it's important to grow something if you've got bare soil. Here's an example of our cover crop trial. We're growing our 8 different cover crops out here in our fall garden. It's already late November and we planted our cover crop seed about 2 weeks ago and everything's already starting to come up. So let's take a look at how it's doing. Australian winter peas are a legume, which means they're nitrogen fixers. They make a relationship with bacteria in the soil that actually brings nitrogen to the soil from the air. So it's growing winter peas or legumes is like growing fertilizer right on site. If you can keep winter peas growing, you're going to have an easier time growing anything else next year. Also, winter peas make a good forage crop for livestock like chickens or pigs or cows, and they grow really fast even when it's cool. Turnips and mustard greens are a kind of an alternative cover crop. They don't form relationships with nitrogen fixing fungus and bacteria, but they are really productive and you can eat them. Turnips and mustard greens are both delicious winter crops. Turnips make a big taproot that goes deep into the soil and pulls a lot of nutrients that have been lost to other plants back up towards the soil surface. Mustard greens are a really popular crop for farmers because they deter nematodes and other pests. So if you are using your cover crop as a way of pest control, mustard greens might be really good. But turnips and mustard greens together give you some pest control, it gives you some nutrient fixing, and you can eat them. So they're great. Broad beans, or fava beans, are another easy to grow cover crop. They are the biggest seed of any of the cover crops that we grow, and you can cook and eat those too if you're so inclined, but they're probably more common as a forage crop for livestock. They get kind of tall and they're really pretty when they're growing. You can see now they're just coming up, and even if they just start coming up in the winter and then it gets too cold for them to continue to grow, usually they just kind of hold and wait until the weather is right. So in the spring, when it starts warming up again, the broad beans or fava beans are going to start growing really quickly and you'll have a very early crop of fava beans. Also another nitrogen fixer. Crimson clover is probably the prettiest, most ornamental cover crop that we sell. It makes a nice red flower early in the spring. Now it's an annual clover, which means that once the plant goes to seed, it dies. But once the plant goes to seed, there are more seeds to grow and replace it. So you usually can naturalize crimson clover in the landscape, but if you don't want to have your cover crop persist year after year, you can till it under before it goes to seed. Once it makes flower, till it under before it goes to seed, and then it won't keep coming back. So it'll avoid tilling it under before it goes to seed, will help prevent it from becoming a weed. Common vetch is another legume, so it's in the pea family, and it makes a really pretty purple flower, kind of like sweet peas. It's a vining plant, and so it'll cover some real ground on the soil. And if you have other plants around it, like taller grasses or shrubs or things, it'll probably twist and vine and wind up those too. So be a little bit cautious using common vetch. It's a little bit on the messier side as far as cover crops go, but it is fast growing and covers a lot of ground. So if you need to get some real work done quick and build nitrogen in your soil, common vetch is a good one. Here we have rye grains. Now rye is a grass, and so it's in a little different family than the other things we've looked at. It's a monocot. It makes a really fibrous, dense root system, so it really does good for holding soil and preventing soil erosion. A lot of farmers plant winter rye is a crop just to keep their fields green and growing through the winter, and you will get a seed crop out of it in the spring if you choose. There again, you can till it under just as a soil conditioner before it goes to seed. But if you've got livestock like chickens and things, you can get the seed for a little extra protein and nutrient for your livestock. Dutch white clover is a perennial clover, so the plants aren't going to die. You'll have them year after year once you plant Dutch white clover. And it's a much shorter clover than crimson clover. It only gets about 8 inches tall. Dutch white clover would be an excellent choice as an alternative to turf. So instead of just growing grass for your lawn, consider clover. And if you are growing grass, consider mixing clover with your grass, because the nitrogen that the clover fixes is going to be shared with your grass. So all the plants in your turf community are going to grow stronger and better if there's some clover growing. I can't say enough about how pretty it is in the landscape and about how easy it is to get going. All you have to do is spread the seed out there and it comes up almost any time of year. If you want it to do even better, cover it with straw. Here's a 5-way cover crop mix. This is kind of like a shotgun approach to cover crops. And here you've got rye grains, there's buckwheat, there's broad beans, I think, in there too. There's a lot going on in our 5-way cover crop mix. So if you're not really sure what is the best cover crop, a mix is probably going to ensure that your soil ecosystem is going to be diverse, and it's going to have nitrogen fixers, and it's going to improve. So any healthy natural landscape has a mix of different kinds of plants growing on it. And using a 5-way cover crop is kind of a way to simulate that natural tendency of landscapes to be mixed up. Here's an overview once again of all of our crops in our trial. In this landscape, it's really rugged. You can see some glacial till soil that's been stripped away of all the topsoil. And it's kind of hard to see now, but we've sown clover onto this and it's all germinating. So in the springtime, this is all going to be green with growth. It's pretty harsh soil, so the clover might not do as well as if it were on really nice, rich soil. But that's not really the point here. What we want to do is get this soil covered green so it's more attractive of a landscape, and so it's healthier of a landscape. A lot of people that have bare, stripped hillsides spend thousands of dollars covering them up with little plants like kinnikinnick, little starts, transplants, and then you have to go through the work of planting hundreds of plants into your hillside, digging little holes for each one. Whereas if you just took some cover crop seed and threw it out there, even on the harshest soils, you'll start getting green growth. And that green growth is going to start building soil, so eventually it'll be a lot easier to get things established like kinnikinnick or cotoneaster or other ground covers. So start with cover crop. It's a really fast way to cover soil, prevent erosion, and save money. In this landscape, we have a raised bed where we're growing cover crop. This raised bed was used to grow tomatoes and flowers during the summer season, but before the end of the summer, we sowed a little bit of cover crop underneath all of our summer vegetables and flowers. So when the weather turned and it was time to remove all of those summer plants, we still had a nice green crop of clover coming up below. That means the soil never had to be barren. We never had to risk losing erosion, and we never had to till the soil. If you want to do one thing for the planet to keep the soil healthy, keep green plants growing. That's the best thing we can do as humans.